Yeah,
Eventually, you'll be able to just rest wherever phenomena arise.
yeah,
There's not going to be um, hesitation. There's not going to be, like lingering doubts. You're just going to rest. Just going to rest and accept and settle and surrender. Yeah.
yeah. Surrender, like whatever phenomena happens, I just
Yeah.
be silent, right? Be silent.
Yeah. Initially, you may feel like, after your attempt at surrendering, you are cringing up, you are cowering, you are still fighting with the lingering effects and so
Yeah,
forth. But then, you'll realize that your awareness is transparent and wide open and non-obstructed. So it doesn't require that you cowering yourself up, in the hope of protecting something, some inner core of you. Everything's just wide open.
yeah. Uh, so it means it looks like it's kind of like feel I don't need to do anything, just be, right? Just
Yeah, a lot of people when they come across the idea of just being, when they come across the idea of not having to do anything, they immediately go into the habit of being heedless, going into habit of blindly following their habits. Okay. So practicing being is different from blindly allowing your habits to unfold. You see, there's a very important difference. When people say, "Oh, I'm not doing anything," what they're really doing is in a relatively dull state of mind, they're allowing a lot of habits to well up. They're allowing the habits to sweep them along. There's a lot of subtle reactivity going on. There's a lot of inner struggle going on. Whereas just being, it really means that you're fully aware. You're wide awake, and that there is no cringing up, there is no wrinkling up inside. There is just this perfect, imperturbable rest. And the
yeah,
more you can do this, the more you will be able to undo, to weaken, to decondition the habit of always resisting, fighting, reacting.
yeah, yeah. Okay, I see. Thank
Yeah.
you. Yeah.
Hi, Dr. Chu.
Hey, hello there, Amy.
I last Sunday I felt very good when I share a 30 minutes meditation with this couple, and the first time I felt so confident to lead a meditation session.
Very good.
and
Yeah,
uh, and during my practice, I I guess I practice all four uh all 16 in four triad of that satipatthana.
yeah,
And like when the sensation or so in the body, like the irritation or whatever come, then I aware right there, like the moment is arise,
yeah,
I acknowledge and I see is going away. I
yeah,
mean, before like it, I didn't even pay attention to it, but I mean, it's take days or some very long time. And then because I'm so focused on practicing, so it's that duration get down to shorter and shorter.
yeah,
And lately I see it's like just a few, I mean, just not even a minute, then I can get my body really at ease, easily. And then, but I do see the connection between, they say body, like chemistry or whatever is the connection between body and mind, the is effect. And then before I had problem because like because what do you call that? Do, like if it pain, but you don't put some medication and you just endure that, just wait until it go away. So I had problem with my mind because of that. Um it's over, like is what the word? But I mean, but now it's better.
You're merely placing a gauze over a festering wound, right? But then, like since you're not
Yes. Yeah.
treating the root cause, the wound continues to fester away. That's what you intend to say?
Yes.
Mhm.
And then feelings, I guess, is rarely come up. I mean, rarely. I feel before like easy get upset, but now it's,
Yeah.
whatever comes, so I feel easy on whatever.
Yeah.
And then
Mhm.
Dharma, just I use that to calm that's a technique. So to calm my bodily and mentally
Yeah.
activities
Yeah.
through the
If you
Dharma.
allow your body and mind to simmer in non-reactivity and peace for a long time, then it automatically has a sort of healing effect. It can, really like get rid of all this old conditionings that you have been exposed to in the past. Yeah.
Yeah, and I don't pay attention to what stage I'm
Yeah.
in,
Yeah.
or whatever, but when I reflect, like sit down and reflect and see, oh, but that is not good either because then I recollect, right? Just live with,
Well, okay. Recollection and any other mental activities, they're not necessarily bad themselves. What you do with them is that you recognize it's an activity, it's an exertion. And so your tendency is toward conserving energy. If you don't have to do it, you don't have to do it. You're
yeah.
inclining towards rest, you see.
Mhm.
Yeah. But this doesn't mean that you're always trying to fight off the use of recollection, that you treat recollection as a big taboo, that you should never use it. The Buddha apparently had the ability to remember things, to actively invoke certain memory, right? It's just that, those of us who have developed a deep understanding of Sankhara, we tend not want to indulge in the use of Sankharas. If we can help it, we don't want to overthink, right? When we can help it, we don't want to use our attention like excessively, right? In fact, we're so lazy that even blinking of an eye, we could see that as an effort. Producing a single thought, that's an effort. If we could help it, we'd rather not. Yeah.
Yeah, but I try.
Even with regards to letting go, there's a kind of letting go where it feels like there's a bubble gum getting stuck in your hair and you're actively trying to pull it out, you're trying to untangle it, you're trying to use a scissor and so forth. Right? There's this very effortful, this very contrived attempt at removing something from your system. But then over time, it's like an experience arises, but then there's no annoyance registered. It disappears right there. It doesn't require you're doing anything. It's like you're completely allowing phenomena to run their course. You don't have to do anything to let it go. You're allowing the phenomena to go away on their own.
Yeah, I can
Yeah.
see that, last semester, since last semester, or since like when I just started on this, now I can see that I had a lot of aversion. Like,
Yeah, yeah,
and now it's much, much better. Like yeah.
yeah, yeah. Like getting rid of aversion, the reason that the Brahma Viharas are described as immeasurable, as the boundless, right? It's because when aversion is rid of, your mind really feels so expansive. All phenomena are integrated. Nothing is fought off. Nothing is excluded, right? So when you're looking at people with different ideas than your own, you don't feel like, oh, there's almost like immediate setting up of a wall. right? Or immediate urge to want to change people's ideas, right? But rather you feel like, things in the way they are, they're okay, they're fine. And there's this allowing things to occur. Yeah. In the end, we're not actively doing the letting go. In the end, we're just allowing awareness to be its own empty self. Yeah. It feels like we're not adding anything. Yeah.
Thank you.
Thank you. Yeah, that's actually a very good meditation technique to practice, especially for people who are already somewhat familiar with Satipatthana. Just to, see if you could try not to add anything else to the present moment. Not having to change anything, add anything. Even in your attempt at letting go of things, you're just allowing things to be let go of on their own. It's not you who's trying to pull the bubble gum, out from your hair. You're allowing, I don't know, like mirage to dissolve on their own accord. I think things are really peaceful in their own right without you having to do anything. You're at peace not because something was thrown out, not something was fought off, or something was overcome. Right? You're at peace because you're in perfect alignment with the way things already are, which is quiescent, which is peaceful.
So, like the stage that we are going through, um, is it because when I hear words from you or from someone, then when I during my experience, when I'm experiencing something, then that word match with the feeling or the thing that I'm experiencing, or is it sometimes I see or because my mind still clinging to that words, and then when the experience come, then I say, oh, that what it was.
But well, the things that are expressed, the things that are manifest, these are called signs. These are called nimittas. And what we can do is we could look beyond the sign and grasp hold of the piece that is behind. So the other day, someone was saying how, whenever they think about their good spiritual friends or kalyana mitta, their teachers and so forth, the way they smile, then they feel very much at peace. And this is why they like to look at um, meditators' pictures and so forth. And I go, well, in the end, it's not really the signs that you're after. It's not really the smile. It's not really the facial expressions, the appearance of your teacher and good friends that you're after. You're after the sense of peace that those pictures may potentially allude to, may potentially invoke, you see. And so when we hear words, we don't necessarily have to grasp hold of the sound or the meaning, but rather just sit with the peace that the words are pointing to.
Right. But I mean, I'm trying to understand. I know if we continue to practice, then,
Yeah.
but I mean, trying to understand how the mind work. And just for example, someone told me not to do something, right? And then when I get to that, then that word, that advice came up. You see? So
Yeah.
every thing that I encountered, then sometimes like long time ago, but it's brought it up. So I say,
Yeah.
because the mind, well, that's what a good advice, right? But when I encounter something, so that advice came up. You see?
Yeah.
But that's still
I
good advice, but
yeah.
we should live in a present moment, which is just to
The present moment is wide open. It would allow the coming and going of useful memories. You see. So when I was little, I was an avid sutra reader. I made it a point to systematically read through basically the entire Sutra Pitaka, right? And a sort of unexpected benefit that I got from such an endeavor was that later on, even after I've long given up the practice of reading so avidly, when I'm meditating or when I run into different situations in life, there will be the appropriate, the relevant sutra teaching welling up in the heart. Something I read in the past, and the time I read it, it may not particularly resonated with me, but at the moment of need, it came up and just right there, it's hitting right on the target. It's just so appropriate, So that's one of the benefits for having trained yourself in quote unquote well-learnedness. Yeah,
So
to be receptive to spiritual instructions. These things will uh, uh, become implanted in the mind in the form of karmic seeds. Yeah.
So in another word, just acknowledge, aware of the
Yeah.
thoughts, but
Yeah.
don't react to
Don't
it.
fight off.
Don't
Don't
react.
think of
No.
memory as something bad. Because
Mm,
if you think of memory as something bad and oh, I'm trying to um, stay in the present moment, so any sort of thought, any sort of memory is impinging upon me, I need to fight them off. When you do that, you're introducing a lot of sankharas in the moment. There's a lot of activity pushing away something, trying to hold on to something, right? Whereas abiding in natural awareness means that you are able to integrate whatever phenomena
mm.
that might be arising. It's just that with regards to these arising phenomena, there is no clinging to them. There's no activity being elicited by these arisen phenomena. And so the phenomena themselves are not um, inimical, right? They're not necessarily harmful to you.
So this relate to what I had learned about the seventh consciousness.
Yeah.
So without
Mano vinyana. Yeah.
yeah. So before with not well before we practice that is because is what is that like is not transferring from the 8 and the 6 um, equanimity, but is have some degree of changing the fact, the fact, the truth. But if
This,
once we convert that seventh consciousness to become like wisdom, then it's become equanimity. So it's not it bring out from alaya exactly what is
yeah.
not
Especially in the
uh,
Yogacara tradition, people talk of the conversion of the four kinds of
mm,
consciousnesses into four kinds of wisdom,
yes,
right?
yeah.
So, with regards to the seventh consciousness, which is Christo Vijnana, um,
Mm,
which can be translated as grasping consciousness, and what it does basically is it would look inwardly at the alaya as its home base, treating it as an absolute subject, and then looking quote unquote out at whatever is coming up in the six sensory media, uh, what is seen, what is heard, all the way up to what is thought of, right? These as objects. And the seventh consciousness would reify subject and object as absolute things and subtly holding on to both ends. Um, so, according to the Yogacara tradition, this is not completely, this ability to treat something as a potential subject, treat something as a potential object is not completely extinguished in an awakened person, but rather it's transformed into something useful. And in this particular case, the seventh consciousness, I believe, is being transformed into something called the equality wisdom. That even though you could still differentiate relative subject from relative object, but deep in your heart, they are treated equally. There's no preponderance of emotional dependency. There's no reification of either the subject or object. Your mind doesn't get close to a subject. Oh, this is where I am located. This is me. Right? It doesn't get close to the object. This is something I want to control, something I want to turn into my possession.
Thank you.
Dr. Chu, I have a question about the awareness. So it seems like if I abide in awareness, it's kind of like I accept no matter what the phenomena is, right?
Okay, so when people talk about abiding awareness, sometimes they operate with the assumption that it has to mean that I have to abide in perfect, pure awareness. Okay, if there's any sort of uh, egotistical thought, if there's any sort of mental defilement, then it doesn't count as pure awareness, right? But actually, this whole meditation technique that revolves around residing in awareness is really just to help people to experience greater seclusion, 远离. Okay. When you try to abide, not necessarily perfectly abide, when you try to abide in awareness, what you ended up doing is you would seclude yourself from the content. You would pacify the many busy activities that you're performing with regards to experiences. See, it's just a device to help you quiet down your mind, to mitigate your identification, to experience some measure of seclusion. And so you really need concern yourself with whether or not the state that I abide in counts as perfect awareness. Even if you're minimally aware, even if you are just, you know, checking up on the fact that, hey, I am aware. I am aware of this. Even when you do that, you are already extricating yourself from the processes a little bit. Maybe there's still, entanglement. Maybe there's still quite a bit of sankharas going, but you are already in a position where you are able to further pacify the sankharas. So it's just think of it as a perception you abide in. Think of it as a kind of seclusion practice you're engaging in. Instead of thinking it as, I have to somehow first understand what is perfect awareness, what is pure awareness, in order to abide in it.
Okay.
Yeah.
But still, I can be like abiding in pure awareness, right? So, yeah.
Arahats and liberated people, they abide in pure awareness all the time.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
So I'd like to know the difference between the ordinary people and Arhat. I think the mind state is like they are abiding in the pure awareness, whereas the ordinary people is kind of like the mind shooting out. I mean, they have the attachment, desire, or something. Yeah. Yeah. Oh.
Yeah, there's a lot of identification with the processes that are going on. And so with that identification, there's emotional investment. You are completely sucked into the processes. It feels like you're embedded in those processes themselves. And so those processes are creating this inner turbulence. You're undergoing all these different things. And all these things are leaving an impact in you. They have stirred you, they've shaken you up.
Oh.
You see, yeah.
Yeah. And also, like if I said I am awareness, it's it's a perception, right? It's a
It can
perception.
potentially just be a perception. It's a useful perception. Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah. You could use such a perception to varying effects, right? Some people can go into very, very deep meditation, which is the I am awareness meditation. Whereas others, it's a very simple way of reining in the everyday tendency to become lost in processes, in sankharas.
Yeah.
Mm.
And also, Dr. Chu, I'd like to know so I am, right? Uh,
Yeah.
I think that I don't need the I, right? So just am. I still don't quite understand why they said I am. Yeah.
Okay. There are many different ways we could work with I am meditation. So what I am explaining right now is not the only way. Okay. How do we help ourselves abide in awareness? Well, we could do so by recognizing that awareness is this self-reflective phenomena, right? Meaning that it's always shining upon itself. It's always knowing itself. Okay. In fact, if you wake up in the morning and there is a short period of time before you remember who you are, before you remember where you are, right? Sometimes, you wake up from a deep slumber and then there's like a brief moment where you don't remember. Say, for example, oh, you moved to Eastvale. You're still processing your environment. You're still fathoming your situation. You go, oh, okay, my husband, he's upstairs. This is a Tuesday or this is a Monday. These are the things I'm supposed to do, right? So before all these complex thoughts set in,
Mhm.
there is already the sense of 临场感, I am here, I am present,
Oh, okay.
you
Yeah,
see.
yeah.
So that is a pure version of awareness. Okay, why do we say that it's pure? Because there's a sense of I am, there's a sense of I am present, but
Mm-hmm.
then the sense of I am does not come with any baggage, like I am this lady, I am this body, I am the daughter of someone. I'm the wife of someone. I have these things to do today. You see,
Oh, yeah.
so awareness is just a sense of presence. It knows its own presence, right?
Mm.
But what it, but what usually comes along are these latent tendency to tag onto the self-reflective presence some other attributes, some other processes. So instead of just abiding in I am, the mind will go, well, I am this, I am
Mhm.
that, I am here, I am there, I'm capable of what, I am in possession of one. You see? So when you try to um, anchor yourself in the more primitive experience of I amness, as opposed to I am X, I am Y, what happens is you've already managed to extricate yourself from quite a bit of processes, mental processes. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
It, it's a practice of seclusion.
Yeah.
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 I would argue that even the sense of I amness eventually will be seen through as involving very subtle sankharas, but it's a wonderful starting point for meditation.
Yeah.
Okay. So if you have trouble understanding what is I am, remind yourself what is 临场感 in Chinese.
Yeah.
临场感. Yeah, the
Yeah.
sense of being present. Yeah. And
So,
and you are right, like why do we need to add a be verb, am, to the subject I?
right.
Okay, well, it's what awareness feels itself to be like. It is not just a thing, it is a self-existent thing. In other words, it recognizes that it is being, you know.
Oh,
Yeah.
yeah.
Um, In fact, one of the meditation practices I did that really helped me was just to ponder over the meaning of being. For example, I will ask myself, well, being myself, how much effort does that take? Being myself. I say, oh, it's hard to be myself.
Yeah.
Right? Then you're not really being yourself. If you're being yourself, why would you say that it's hard? You must be trying to be someone else. You see, I'm trying to look like a professor. I'm trying to act like a man. I'm trying to be a good son. I'm trying to be a dutiful Buddhist, right? Then it will feel a little taxing, right? But if you're really being yourself, how much effort does that take? Being, I am. We know that be verb is a verb. So it suggests action, right?
Right.
So what do you have to do in order to be, to stay I am? You could look at that,
Oh,
and then you'll gradually arrive at this point where, really being requires no effort. There seems to be all these things going on. There are thoughts being produced, thoughts fading away, people are, I don't know, your husband is doing something upstairs, your parents are doing other things, and so on and so forth, but it requires no effort on your part. All these things come in and out of your experiential field without your having to exert yourself at all. The whole universe is created and goes into destruction without your having to add any effort into it. You think that all these thoughts I'm producing, all these choices that I'm making in life, difficult choices I'm making in life, when you look closely at it, there's no one doing that. You cannot detect any process by which you're producing those thoughts. Thoughts just come in. Just like all these phenomena, they pop in, pop out of existence. So how much effort does it take for the
yeah.
universe to exist?
Uh,
Like it's kind of like what Lao Tzu said, right?
yeah,
Through no effort, the heaven makes everything accomplished.
yeah. Right,
Right?
right. Yeah.
And just ponder on that. Sometimes just pondering on it will quiet you down. It'll make you appreciate more what it means to be at rest.
Yeah. But I think my problem is that I, I don't have the I. I only have the being. Yeah. It's hard for me to think I. It's
Yeah,
only being. Yeah.
yeah. Well, the word I can trigger different connotations. So some possible connotations of I could mean immediacy, meaning that it's not something that would require you to go somewhere to do something in order to have this.
Oh,
You see?
yeah.
So so
Right.
so this being right here, what is experience, the suchness,
Mm.
does it not feel like I to you? It's just here,
Yeah.
right? Immediately with no mediation, right? It requires
Right.
no exertion on your part and just not just close to you, but you are that. So it's for these reasons that we tentatively call it I.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Oh, okay.
The,
Oh,
the, the, the present moment, how far away is it from you? If you say, oh, I can experience the present moment, then you're suggesting that you and the present moment are still kind of holding a distance from each other. So you can experience the present moment, right? But
right.
what about if you say the present moment is I?
I. Oh, yeah.
What possibility is there for any doing to happen?
Oh,
And
oh,
every moment is like that.
oh,
Like with regards to all experiences is like that. Really, no. The all the activities, all the relationships are just product of the mind. But in reality, there are no relationships. Everything just I. Everything just intimate. Everything's right here.
mm.
Everything requires no effort. You
Oh,
see. And once again, we don't want to just stay at the philosophical level with regards to the teaching, but rather when you're pondering over this, when you treat this as almost a kind of koan, right? 看话头, right? 参禅,
Oh,
koan practice, it has the potential to quiet you down immediately. It has the potential to help you recognize what is sankhara, what is rest, what is being.
mm,
Mm,
okay. Yeah. Thank you so much, Dr. Chu.
yeah.
Yeah.
It's very funny how in Hinduism and Buddhism, the word I creates almost opposite connotation. In Buddhism, when the Buddha say self, it's a very bad thing. It's busyness. It's a mind doing something. So self is always selfing, right? So we want to recognize the dukkha of selfing and let it go, right?
Right.
But then in many schools of Hinduism, I is rest. I is that which requires no effort.
Yeah.
And the two religions are using the words very differently, but I really believe they're pointing to the same goal. I is what? Is nibbana. I is the nature of awareness.
Oh, yeah.
Um,
So how you contemplate it is the most
Yeah,
important.
like I said, all these things are just a matter of use of perceptions, right? Don't get caught up with these words and go, oh, which one is truth, right? Which one points to ultimate reality? No, it, we're doing these different kinds of contemplations just to help the mind quiet down.
Mm,
Yeah. And
okay.
sometimes it's really helpful to think of awareness as that which is intimate, close, immediate, right here. You don't need to send your attention out.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh, okay.
Mhm.
Immediate. Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay.
Mhm.
Okay.
Mhm.
Thank you so much,
Okay.
Dr. Chu. Yeah.
Mhm.
Dr. Chu,
Yeah.
so I have been learning a lot about no self,
Mm.
non-self, not self, and impermanent and things like that. But
Yeah.
the sign at the gate there, I put those permanent, what is that?
Dukkha and not self, right?
Not self,
The
and
three marks.
four of them. Permanent, peace, not
Yeah, I know.
self,
常乐无尽. So
and
the nivaranas, the
pure.
nivaranas.
The
Yeah.
last one is pure.
常乐无尽
But so where are
means
they? Yeah,
self. Mm.
I put it there. I didn't know where which sutra where it's brought where
Yeah,
that came
okay. So
from.
these
Yeah.
four words are sources of controversy. Okay, so sometimes they are treated as bad words in Buddhism. Sometimes they're treated as good words in Buddhism. So when they're treated as bad words, these four refer to the four different ways in which sentient beings have upside down thinking. They have upside down thinking. They have they have um
Yeah,
they take what is impermanent to be permanent,
right.
right? They take what is not suited to be treated as a self to be their self,
Right.
right?
The bad
They they
word.
they they take what is really dukkhic to be blissful, right? And they take what is really impure to be pure, right? So these are the four upside down perceptions, if you will.
Mhm.
Okay. So these four can denote the way reality appears to a deluded being, to an unawakened being. Now, on the other hand, these four are used in Hinduism and also in Mahayana sutras as as describing the nature of nibbana.
Yes.
Yeah.
So
And
that's
therefore these four
from
can be,
Mahayana.
liberation gates. Yeah.
That's from Mahayana tradition.
Right. So in Mahayana, there is a sutra called the Mahaparinirvana Sutra, not to be mistaken with the Pali version of the Mahaparinibbana Sutta. Those are two different sutras with very radically different content. The Mahayana version talks about these four very specifically. Yeah. And Hinduism very prominently talk about how ultimately, all human beings are aspiring after these four things. What do we want? We want perfect happiness. What do we want? We want perfect control. We want perfect bliss. All right, we want perfect purity. Well, yeah, we want perfect permanence. You know, yeah.
And I also heard that for human beings, for ordinary person, is impossible to um, to be liberated in this current present life here for an ordinary person. I mean, how do I put this? Because if the okay, he say that the one who liberated, enlightened it, then will not go back to delusion, because once you light up the light, the room is light, so it cannot go back to dark. So does that mean partially being awareness is partially, but not fully being awareness, but ones who fully being awareness will not convert back to delusion? Is that what you think about that?
Yeah, so in Buddhism, there's this idea called non-retrogression, right? Either you look at non-Mahayana or Mahayana traditions. In Mahayana tradition, there's this notion called the bhumi. So either at the stage of the first bhumi or at the stage of the eighth bhumi, when you have witnessed the so-called non-production of all dharmas, that's the point at which you will never experience spiritual regression. You can never fall away from your current realization of the way things are, right? And in early Buddhism too, there is this notion called retrogression, non-regression, non-retrogression, and this is typically attained at the stage of stream entry. And there are many different models, there are many different ways of conceptualizing how this works. One model goes that, like once you have experienced nibbana, then you have been quote unquote traumatized by nibbana in a very positive way. Nibbana leaves an indelible imprint in the mental stream, and therefore you're forever transformed. You can never unsee what you have witnessed. What you have seen will always leave an imprint in your mind stream. Other models talked about how your effluence, all your mental defilements, they work kind of like a water dam. If you knock away even just a chunk of the dam at the critical juncture, then the integrity, the systematic integrity of the whole structure will be compromised. And it's only a matter of time before, the build-up pressure would crumble the whole structure. It would just, collapse the entire dam, right? So all it takes is if you take away a single critical piece in the dam for the whole thing to be rendered untenable. Yeah, the same thing works with the mental defilements too. Mental defilements are fundamentally undergirded by delusion. And once delusion is gone, like some people would say that delusion is personality view. Other Buddhist traditions say different things, but suffice it to say, with that fundamental delusion gone, all the mental defilements, they're kind of like a deck of a house of cards, right? The whole thing, the whole edifice would be undermined. And this is why the suttas talk about how stream enters, at most, it would only take them 7 rounds of rebirth before they come to a complete ending of all remaining suffering. Right? And 7, you could argue that it's a metaphor for limited, what is understood as limited in
But
Buddhism.
not the real.
There are people who argue 7, you should take it literally, right? There are people who argue that 7, just like many other numbers in Buddhism, you should take them metaphorically. Like 84,000 doesn't really mean 84,000 in Buddhism, literally. It means infinite, or yeah. 10 doesn't really mean 10. 10 just means perfect, right? And I could give you a list of numbers and their supposed metaphorical meanings. Yeah. And this is a useful idea to have, actually, this idea of non-retrogression. It's very, very useful to conceptualize the whole meditation enterprise as a process of shedding as opposed to a process of accumulating. You're not picking up new skills, you're not picking up new habit, you're not trying to hoard karmic merits, but rather you're deconditioning the mental stream of its habits in mental defilement. Yeah, on a more relatable note, people who have really tasted inner peace, it's it's hard to conceive that they will be tempted by things outside. I don't care however sensational, however glorious the temptations are, right? If people go, oh, what about if I give you 1 million, right? What about I give you 10 million? What about I give you 100 million, right? And whatever external accumulations, whatever novel experiences are promised, in comparison to this unalloyed, non-changing peace inside, I mean, it's a no-brainer. You wouldn't even hesitate for a moment to go, okay, I'm going to sacrifice inner peace on behalf of these external things. Yeah, and that could be a sign of non-retrogression. There's nothing the world can offer that would tempt you away from just keep releasing yourself into this inner emptiness. And no going back. Yeah. Hey, hello, Jared. Yeah, yeah, yeah. So look at this game that the mind is repeating, repetitively playing with. See that urge, see that impulse to generate the desire, to always look for the next horizon, to next what is on offer. Try to notice this tendency on the part of the mind. Whenever that impulse is softened, it's dissolved to whatever measure, immediately you're able to enjoy greater peace. Just keep doing this. Just keep doing this. The mind will rebel 1,000 times. It will tell you, no, 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 the next one on offer is different. Okay, this approaching horizon is really way more majestic than anything you have seen before. And then you're able to see it for what it is. There's impulse, there's agitation in the mind, there's a rising of this new experience, and then there's just fading away of this experience. And if you, what you did was you were holding out hope for this new experience, and you were emotionally leaning on this new experience, you see that there's disappointment, there's dissatisfaction. It fades away, and then it leaves you still wanting. Right? Just keep witnessing this. Keep being aware of this fact. And whatever little peace you ended up having from pacifying such impulse, don't look down on. Don't go, I'm such a lousy meditator. This is such a humble. This is such a modest amount of peace. Don't do that. Just be with it. And, see if you could just savor it, lean on it, bask in it. And as your mind struggle diminishes, the peace will feel like it's growing, even though technically it's not growing. It's just that it was previously veiled. It was veiled by, all this busy activity of the mind. And now that with the busyness subsiding, the peace, feels like it's manifesting, feels like it's growing. And just trust in that. There's nothing on the offer that could ever be better than this. Whatever new thing is on the offer, it will go through the same phase. Arisen new experience, and then it fades away. So instead, lean on peace, lean on equanimity. Even the Buddhas, like on the eve of his final liberation, I bet for him it was not, cosmic fireworks going on, the earth quaked in 6 different ways. Ooh, big deal, all the gods showing up. Ooh, someone becoming a Buddha, right? Rather, it just feels just perfect, contented serenity to the Buddha. Think of the Tao in such a way. It's not something you add. It's returning to normalcy. So you harbor no greed, you harbor no fantasy about something fantastical, right? But rather you take consolation in what is normal. You content yourself with what is readily available. You just keep working on that, and you'll see your suffering diminishing. It's the mind's way to just keep telling you, something else is going to happen, but this is different. Something new, something fantastic, something I've never seen before. Yeah, that's the mind's way. Don't believe it. Or just, like patiently observe. These are the processes. When the desire to become awakened arises, recognize, feel the agitation that's involved, feel the sensation, feel, that's as if water pressure is building up inside, maybe a subtle one. Are we not tired of waxing and waning water pressure all the time? The mind is going through alternating elation and disappointment, elation, disappointment, looking forward to something, and then dissatisfaction. We've gone through this countless times. A return to peace. A stream mentor, and what was the first one? Dharma, what? Oh, okay. Yeah. In the suttas, the stream mentors are typically divided into these two categories, right? One is called the faith followers. The other is called the Dhamma followers, right? In Chinese, this is usually translated as 信行者 versus 法行者. Let me give you an example of what a typical faith follower works. He is greatly inspired by a teacher, by a good friend, because he finds the demeanor, the presence of the said good friend to be confidence inspiring. And so in his mind, he goes, I want what he has, right? Or that I feel like he is embodying a sort of mental state where mental defilement is either extinguished or greatly diminished. I want what that person has. And you just take at face value what he says. When the good friend tells you, you are this inner peace, don't get misled by outside drama, but just keep devoting yourself to inner peace. And you just go, okay, all right, I'm just gonna take his word. I'm just gonna, right. When the person tells you that, hey, don't believe in the reductionist materialist claim that you are just this body and that there's real literal death with regards to your awareness, and you don't believe that, but instead you believe the good friend's advice about how awareness is atemporal, it's outside time, it's beyond birth and death, and you just follow this. This is the typical way of the faith follower. On the other hand, the Dhamma follower, they tend to have a probing spirit. They tend to have a quote unquote scientific outlook on things. They tend to want to experiment, to explore on their own. They use critical faculties, deductive reasoning, inductive reasonings. They may or may not rely on authorities' words. And when they do so to varying degrees. In the end, they primarily based on, the spirit of experimentation, as opposed to the spirit of dedication or devotion. Yeah. Yeah, I think it's entirely conceivable that a meditator could just like there's a story of Nisargadatta, right? Sri Nisargadatta. He said that he was just an ordinary householder. He was just running like a very modest shop in India, and he only had like a brief meeting with his teacher before the teacher passed away at a relatively young age. And all the teacher said to him was, take my word for it. Believe me when I tell you that you are a God. You are awareness. Right. And what Nisargadatta did was he just lived as if these words were literal truths. And before long, he felt like he had major breakthroughs. Right. He felt like his affluence or depleted. Yeah. So this, you could argue that this is an example of a faith follower. Yeah. On the other hand, there are people like, I don't know, by calling myself a faith follower, I'm not implying that, oh, I'm a stream ender or anything like that. I'm just saying that tendency wise, I'm fortunate or unfortunate in that I've been exposed to academic training. And so I tend not to accept what the suttas say uncritically. right? I oftentimes look at suttas and immediately my mind is going like, well, to what extent is this a sectarian work? To what extent are these apocryphal suttas? Like what sort of agendas went into their composition and so on and so forth, right? And so I tend not to just console myself, oh, this is how things work, but rather I tend to delve into things very deeply. I experiment, you know, like with techniques extensively, is wanting to observe very carefully what their effects are. Yeah. But in the end, I think, with some breakthrough, the difference between those two may blur. Okay, I really think that a Dhamma follower in the end could really become deeply devotional in his affective makeup. He may have strong devotional feelings towards, say, for example, the Triple Gem. And on the other hand, a faith follower can end up in a place where he or she is no longer just blindly reliant on outside authority, but just completely embodying something that is self-verified.
Um, Dr. Chu, which way is better?
In
Someone
the, in the
talking.
suttas, the Buddha tend to praise the Dhamma followers, but with the full granting of the fact that people are just different. People have different temperaments, and you can't really force people to be one or the other. Yeah, there are people, even if they want to, they simply cannot afford to be Dhamma followers. They I don't know, they're the requisite faculties, the critical faculties are not that well developed, right? On the other hand, there are people who um, never have come across like a person or an idea worthy of sincere devotion. That's possible too. Yeah, and for such a person, he or she may have to reinvent the wheel in the role of a solitary Buddha, in the role of a Pacceka Buddha. That's entirely possible too, right? So faculty-wise, there is hierarchical difference. People, the Buddha would say that the Dhamma followers tended to be more intelligent. They are more likely to turn out to be more capable teachers, right? But as far as practicing for your own sake, then both works. It's just a result of your temperament.
And is it right if, as a teacher, we have to know what to teach other and what not? For example, I heard one of the praise like this, like the about enlightenment or about the talking about Pure Land. So
Yeah.
it's the highest enlightenment stage, but we shouldn't talk about that to the one who doesn't believe or trust about it, because if we mention it, then they have the doubt, the mind of doubt, then that
Okay, actually, there are quite a few points of clarification. Number one, in speaking of the faith follower, we're not talking about, like people who practice Pure Land Buddhism or Buddhist schools that require a lot of faith. We're not talking about that at all. In early Buddhism, there's no There's
Actually,
no such a
yeah,
possibility,
yeah,
right?
actually, there's no link between this and the previous conversation, though. Just
Okay. So um different we will all end up, in the case that we do end up teaching, we're all just going to teach according to our ability, right? We have very different styles, right? But the suttas tend to praise those teachers who are astute enough to prescribe techniques that are better administering to the needs of the audience involved. So if you can tell that your audience is relying heavily on her, say, affective, devotional faculty, then you make use of that, right? The affective, the devotional faculty, they're people who are emotional, people who are um, they're easily moved, they're easily inspired, and so forth, right? They use their reverence for the triple gem as a great galvanizing inner energy, right? Then you see to that the person make use of such faculty, you see. And then there are people who either don't have that, or they have even more effective tools at their disposal. Then you see to that they use those more effective tools.
you know why? Because I concerned about that because um I'm not good at reading other people's mind.
Right. Okay.
That
Then
was in
that's
the
perfectly
sense of
fine too. This
personality
is why I
and
preface all that with how we're just going to teach uh, according to uh, our ability. So there are teachers who just completely ignore the individual differences. I'm not saying you're like that, okay, but I'm giving you like an extreme example just to illustrate my point, right? Completely ignore individual differences and you just keep repeating the same thing. There are these Ajahn, forest Ajahns who are known for their great meditative prowess. They're able to go into very deep samadhis, right? But they're also, if I may say so, notorious for not being very articulate teachers. And so if they encounter Thai disciples, if they encounter Western disciples, they just invariably repeat the same thing. Bring your mind down, bring your mind down. And there are people like, I don't know, like Ajahn Thanisaro, who recounted how much he struggled as a novice monk when his teachers just kept telling him, bring your mind down, bring your mind down. He had no idea how to do that, right? And sometimes when you resort to such a mechanical technique without knowing how to modify it, then it produces unwanted result. Like if you just keep bringing your mind down, you might end up in a dejected place, for example, and that's not samadhi, right? But um, these teachers' lack of ability to teach, notwithstanding, if you are with these truly accomplished teachers for long enough, their good influence is going to rub off on you. So you're going to uh, correct course sooner or later. It's a matter of how much um, a detour you have to take. But in the end, like being the presence of such a teacher, somehow the problem will be identified one way or another, will be corrected one way or the other. And even if in a implicit way, even if there's no spoken or explicit instruction involved, um, just being the presence of someone who's accomplished has a correcting potential. You could just automatically bring your mind to a more balanced, to a more natural state when you're with someone who is, awakened. Yeah.
I really hesitate to share Buddha's teaching with anyone because I read that saying that I don't have the skill to know like what they need, so I can provide what how to help them. So I don't have that skills yet.
My advice is just to do what makes you happy.
Well,
If you don't want to teach, you don't have to teach. If you like to teach, you could try to teach with humility, but just keep in mind that
but let me
whatever you think you are, like happy to teach or unhappy to teach,
but let me
you may
finish.
change your mind. Yeah.
Let me finish it, and you see my
Yeah, yeah.
point. So normally when I guess sometimes when I share with what I have in mind. That's what I have, right? So
Yeah.
my point is just go straight forward to, trying to get, in the abide with awareness or get to that on that path. But the when I read this sutta saying that if we share that to the one that they take that in opposite way, then it's become poisonous to them. You see, that make me hesitate to even share my idea with people, because I'm afraid they take that and then become the poisonous instead of.
If I may, I don't even believe that the Buddha was perfect in the sense that he can only administer the best possible instruction, most suited to his audience. I don't believe he was perfect. I think that he's made mistakes, he's correct course, he's, like try to change his message when he see that his previous instruction was not producing the intended effect. This I see again and again in sutras. And I understand, how there are many devout Buddhists who would just not be happy with my statement here. They like to think of the Buddha as a perfect teacher, but I think that the Buddha being imperfect in this regard makes him a much more emulable exemplar than otherwise. If he was perfect, then there's no way I could ever imitate his style or to be inspired by his example. You see. So with the full acknowledgement that even the Buddha was fallible, to not necessarily offering, say, the most opportune, the most relevant, the most effective techniques to all of his audiences, what he is truly inspiring is either the way he was truly inspiring is that he's constantly adjusting. He observes, right? If this technique doesn't work with this individual, then let me try something different. We should not be afraid of making mistakes. We should be afraid of repeatedly making mistakes due to our inflexibility, due to our ignorance, due to our failure to be aware of our activities. You see, that's what we should be afraid of. But we shouldn't be afraid of making mistakes. So just understand how, in this world, in order for you to say, become reborn in the hellish realm, it's not the result of your having committed one single karmic misdeed that led you there. It's one maladaptive reaction following the other, and before you know it, the situation gets escalated out of control. It becomes like aggravated by one bad reaction, by one really lousy choice after another, that you ended up in hell. Yeah. Otherwise, in life, we're constantly making mistakes. But then, there's honesty on our part, there's sincerity on our part, there's integrity on our part, so that we don't get bogged down, we don't get frustrated, we don't dwell on what is non-constructive, right? And nor are we paralyzed by the fear of making mistakes. That would be a huge mistake, right? So, when I'm interacting with people, and there are times when I feel like very confident in sharing certain advice, right? And there are times I'm not so certain. I go, well, this is what I think, right? Let's see where this would take us, right? Let's
In,
see what the yeah.
I don't know how to translate it to English, but in Vietnamese, we say Buddha is the one who perfectly in knowing the condition and the right time,
I don't
right
believe that.
condition
Yeah,
to.
that's for me. That's like Mahayana Christians, and I respect people who want to hold that perception of the Buddha. I understand that perception of a perfect Buddha may serve some purpose. So I respect that. I'm not trying to
Mhm.
denigrate your personal belief, right? But I am saying that for me personally, um, the Buddha was so clearly fallible. The suttas are filled with these very realistic instances. Yeah, if the Buddha was really, say, omniscient in the literal sense, i.e., is perfect knowing in every conceivable aspect, always giving the most appropriate teaching at the most appropriate time, then the suttas will not be replete with all these, rather unflattering incidents indicating, people's frustration or utter failure at their spiritual cultivation. The people who committed suicide under the Buddha's watch, that would be one extreme, right? There are instances where people were just dumbfounded by the Buddha's answer, so they ended up going to one of the Buddha's disciples, and then their question was cleared away by the disciple, not by the Buddha, right? There are instances where uh, people were actually frustrated or in fact angered by the Buddha's response, and those unskillful reactions are only removed or only cleared away after they had a chance to talk with the disciples. You see, so once again, I don't expect the majority of Buddhists to agree with me on this issue. I know how important it is to hold this idea that the Buddha was just perfect in every way. For me, the Buddha was perfect in a qualified sense. He was perfect in, having found a solution to suffering. He was perfect in having removed all mental defilements, and that's pretty much it. If he was to get into anyway, so in other worldly contexts, I really don't think that. I really think that this idea of the Buddha was just perfected, is a um, um, religious sentiment.
But in the Buddha always praised that the Buddha for ordinary arhat or someone just known couple previous life, just the
No, a
Buddha
lot
has
of that was,
number of lives, number of lives of.
yeah, that's a complex issue, and I frankly don't believe that the mind is capable of handling something called infinite information. I really believe that it's a result of, like a devotional tendency that people go, oh, with regard to this regular arahat, he's capable of recalling 5 previous lifetimes. With regard to a really powerful arahat like Shariputra, like Moggallana, they're able to recall up to 500 previous lifetimes. With regards to the Buddha, he was able to recollect an infinite number of past lives. And to me, uh, the sort of hierarchical ranking of different types of individuals, and also pitting the Buddha against the founders of other religions, the teachers of other religions, are largely a product of, the Ashokan period, when Buddhism became a national religion of a sort, and there was a vested interest on the part of the Buddhists to prove the superiority of Buddhism in every regard. Yeah, and to me, these conceptions of Buddhism are just so not useful, are just so irrelevant to my main inquiry. So I just brush it off. Once again, I don't want to denigrate your personal belief. If you find that, this belief is very important to you, it's sacrosanct, I understand it. It has a purpose. It can potentially serve a purpose. But for me, the potential downsides for holding such a perception outweigh the benefits that can potentially provide.
Well, I just want to know what your thoughts about it, about all these, because I've been reading a lot, and most of them are in Mahayana side of sutras,
Yeah,
and so I just want to clear my doubts because
yeah.
um,
If you look at the individual thoughts that we harbor, right, the individual thoughts are a container of finite information. Any given thought is capable of holding a limited amount of information. You see, in other words, thoughts are by nature perspectival. They're by nature finite. They are by nature, coming from a certain position. Okay, they are targeted at something, and so they're by nature finite. Yeah, so I don't, I cannot see how it's possible that with every single thought, everything there is to be known in the universe. I don't find the idea relatable at all. Yeah.
Well, there's uh, but also, well, some say this, the other text different.
Yeah, yeah.
Finally, the Buddha say, but Buddha understand people mind, the thoughts and everything, and he concluded in saying that all that is, what is that, impermanent or not? The word is what is that? It's not real. It's fake.
Look,
So all
Venerable, I don't have any desire to change people's belief on these issues. So, I mean, if you are, like inclined to hold the Buddha in such an exalted status, and that's okay. Like countless Buddhists have done so in the past. So obviously there is not great harm in holding to such a belief, right? On the other hand, I like to subject all beliefs, all ideas to the simple frame of the five-pronged investigation. Right? I talked about this. Yeah. So yeah.
thank you.
Hey, Jared. Mhm. Can you speak up? Jerry, I could really make out what you're saying. Mhm. Yes, somewhat, yeah. Mm, mm, mm. Okay. One of the possible things you can do is to explore the following. When you go on a vacation, agenda-free vacation, meaning let's say you're just hanging out at a cafe, in a coastal town, having nothing to do, just do people watching. Do you tend to suffer headaches? Yeah. It might happen. Okay. Can you think of a scenario where it will not happen? Like, I don't know, uh, kicking your legs up on a beach, I don't know, on a Caribbean vacation, or can you think of a scenario where headaches are not likely to happen? Okay, okay, good, 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 good. So ask yourself, what are you doing differently? When we go on camping and when we are meditating, supposedly on both of these occasions, we can practice freedom from worry. We could practice freedom from exertion. We can appreciate wilderness. We can appreciate seclusion, right? Potentially, we could do all those things in either one of these activities. So why is it that when you're camping, when you're backpacking, you don't tend to experience headache? Whereas when you are, say, I don't know, formally sitting, then you experience headache. What is it that you're doing? Look at the attitude that you're holding, the expectation you're holding, and work from there. And just remind yourself, like sometimes in meditation, don't even think about you're having to accomplish something, you're having to go through some set procedure, but rather you could spend the entire meditation session just figuring out what makes this task more mentally taxing? What makes this task more likely to produce headache? Just observe, just look at the experience. There's something we're doing differently. These things are oftentimes quite subtle, like in my case, when I was little, when my mother told me concentrate, right, study hard, right, and she may, I don't know, stand next to me with a whip in hand, literally. This is typical Asian, parenting style, right? So when now that I'm an adult, I think about concentrating, right? Like bringing myself to a certain task at hand. I almost couldn't help it but to still have some association with the past, childhood experience. This whole thing about concentrating tenses me up, maybe very subtly. As soon as I'm asked to deal with a task, there's a subtle tightening inside. There's like a activation of a neurotic tendency inside. All right, see if that's the case with us. I kept emphasizing the importance of ridding of contrivances in your use of awareness. In fact, you could spend sessions after sessions, trying to do nothing other than just this. Are you the way you're being in the present moment? Are you constricting your air duct? Are you frowning? Are you cocking your eyes? Are you stiffing up your facial expression? Are you slightly holding tightly some parts of your body? Are you slightly shifting your center of gravity to the head region? Are you, like do things like that? And so that you can, like be more deeply relaxed and take an even more natural, non-affected approach to meditation. Yeah. You can also try the following, okay? So the next time you're going to do meditation, you tell yourself, look, I'm 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 going on a camping trip. I'm doing backpacking. Okay. And you literally don't have to do anything other than what you would typically do, during a camping trip. So I don't know, you're like, oh, you allow your mind to expand. You relinquish your worries or concerns about worldly matters. Right. So for the following meditation session, I'm not going to do the typical, like meditation routine. Instead, I'm just going to put myself in that casual mindset that I typically find myself in when I'm on a camping trip. Just, like play with us and observe and even when you spend, say, for example, the whole hour, I'd say that's the typical length of your meditation session, or, the 15 minutes. I don't know however long or short. Um, you could really just do nothing. You could just tell yourself, I'm just not going to do anything. I'm just going to see why this is different than, say, the sort of mentality I'm in when I'm on a camping trip. That's the only thing I'm gonna try to figure it out. Otherwise, I'm just going to do nothing. Okay, so if there's not anything else, we can call it a day two. Okay. Please be reminded that next Monday is going to be my last office hours for the semester. And our office hours may resume sometimes towards the end of January, so 20 something. I don't recall the exact date, but they're about. The office hours for next semester will be Mondays, Wednesday. Let me see. Let me actually bring this up. Give me 1 second here. They're going to be Monday and Wednesdays, 12 to 1:30. And most likely that will begin on January the 27th. Again, they're on. And during this interim, if you feel like you have some pressing questions, you can always email me. I'll see if I can arrange a Zoom session with you while I am abroad. Yeah. Okay. Anything else? All right. If not, please take care, people.
Thank you very
Thank
much.
you. Have a nice evening.